Hi Laura, how are you?
Very well, Nigel. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you and welcome to this fireside chat. I hear that there's lots of interesting inputs which are going to come from your side and on the topic of cocktails and experiential dining from what is from fad to the norm. But before we delve into it, let me do a brief introduction about myself. Uh, I'm meeting you for the first time, so it's a pleasure to meet you, and to all the other members of DLC. Firstly, thank you for having me. My name's Nigel. I am the group executive chef of Stars and Bars. Uh, I started off my career way back in 2008 with the Oberoi Hotels. I was with them till 2015. Uh, Hospitality was something I always wanted to get into because I just thought that it brought such a joy to our patrons and the people who we were taking care of. Uh, I worked in Michelin star restaurants abroad in Australia, Germany, spent 6 months in Spain, did a training course there, got immersed in the culture, cuisine, and then I came back to Dubai. Being born and raised in Dubai, I've been here for like 25 years. I pre-opened a couple of restaurants in the market, starting with the Eloquent Elephant at the Taj in Business Bay. And then I joined standalone restaurants in 2019, 18 actually, and got the, bore the brunt of the pandemic, which was really difficult for all of us. Uh, but that also brought out the best in us and our offerings. I pre-opened two restaurants, Asia Tang and Coco Bay on the Palm in Jumeirah, and looked after 10 standalone restaurants, and then joined Stars and Bars. So that's a brief introduction about me, and I'll let you have the mic now, Laura.
Okay, I actually am surprised because I'm hearing that you worked or opened places that I used to go.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, that's nice to hear. So I'm not here in Dubai for as long as you have. It's only 10, 11 years that I arrived in Dubai. It's pretty much where I started my hospitality career because I actually came with not really a plan to work in hospitality, not that much. It was okay, it's a way to get here. I start in hospitality, then I kind of move on. The thing about it is that hospitality, once it catches you, I think it's very hard to let go because you truly discover a passion. If it's something that you're really meant to do and it's something that you truly enjoy, and once you discover that passion, I never wanted to do anything else. So obviously, I continued in the industry. I've been I started off as a bartender. I moved to few places. I started doing bartending competitions, which was amazing because any competition, it's all about creativity. It's all about just literally putting out there everything that is in your mind and letting people see. And then after the competition phase kind of stopped, I focused a lot more on management. And then I moved on in a position as well. I'm currently a beverage manager for Atlantis. Um, so it's something that with hospitality, I think as I mentioned, you start with the passion. You get to know yourself as well. You get to express your creativity, but then it comes as well a lot of hard work, a lot of planning. Everything that people see in front of them at the restaurant, at the bar, may it be a dish, may it be a cocktail. There is obviously a lot of planning and a lot of hard work behind it. But I guess that's what we are going to discuss a little bit more today.
That's amazing, and it's so nice to hear that you've been doing cocktail competitions, which brings us to a topic about creative and experiential dining and cocktails and curating their menus. Because uh, I personally feel that competitions allow you to go beyond the box and take that extra mile from what you normally do, to basically be creative with things which we wouldn't look at otherwise. I think that in the hospitality industry, as you said, There is a lot of work which goes on behind the scene. But that also brings us to, I mean, something called operational blindness, where we do not question what we do on a daily basis. So to push creativity a little bit more, I think competitions are a super way of, getting that one step ahead.
But I do believe that as well when it comes to this and when it comes to competitions, I think the way that hospitality works now, it changed so much as opposed to before. I mean, it pretty much started off out of necessity. People were working or didn't really want to cook at home. They would just go out, grab something nice to eat, have a cocktail or something else to drink next to. But it was more of a necessity. But now, once I believe that hospitality as well started to develop, I mean, the food itself, the way that you cook it, the way that you present it developed quite a lot. And along with the food, the bar kind of got all the influence, because in reality, we're pretty much stealing all the techniques from the kitchen. Everything that we currently we use now are techniques that were developed by chefs, because it's pretty much the same thing. You work with flavors as well. You just work with more textures. We don't have as much textures at the bar, but with all of that, and with because we were on the topic of competitions, with showing all of those processes and more elaborate drinks and everything else, I believe that the people's expectations are as well started to change. So you don't necessarily go now to a place, to a restaurant out of necessity. You go more because you want to experience. You go because you want to live an experience, and that would be through the food and through the drinks. And basically, I think it's a big part of where we are now and the things that we do. The fact that people's expectations have changed drastically.
I think post the pandemic, first people were just happy to get restaurants back into their lives, because they were all kept away from them for some time. So they actually missed it, which they were taking for granted earlier. And the pandemic has given a lot of restaurateurs and entrepreneurs time to rethink their concepts and to rethink their offerings and to come up with more creative food and beverage options. As you said, that you all don't play so much with texture compared to us. But I'm really intrigued by the fact that Michelin star restaurants all over the world have now been taking beverage as seriously as food, by developing ice programs as well, to see different densities and different textures, which will give you the best drink possible. And saying that, I think Dubai is slowly climbing to the world scene, especially with getting all the guides, especially the Michelin Guide and Golden Milieu recently, which has slowly started to push gastronomic tourism, or bring the light of experiential cuisine, which people are doing in Dubai, to the world. What are your thoughts on that?
100%, I agree. I mean, this year has been huge for us when it comes to this, when it comes to the guides. Just having a Michelin guide here and people being able to see what we are doing, and people being able to understand, okay, if I come to Dubai and I'm going to come for just a couple of days, maybe I should visit this and this place, because there are so many places. It's a big city. There's so many places here. And the reality is, even if you have an amazing product, it's hard to get it out there. And these type of guides are a huge help, because as well they're showing the caliber that we are at as an industry, along with Michelin Guide, which is still quite focused on food, as well the San Pellegrino 50 Best, because they do have their bar edition as well. So in addition to that, you are now able to kind of understand what would be the bars to visit in Dubai. And this is, I believe, a big help for us as an industry, because it is a way of introducing the people to what we do. It is a way of almost educating them, because they understand the level that the cuisine is at. They understand how much the cocktails have evolved, and that's what it comes with the expectations. And then that's when everyone is going to start to push more, because you want to be at the same level regardless where you work in the city. So I do believe that it's a huge help, and it's a major booster for the entire industry.
Yes, I think what you said hits the nail on the head, because it brings Dubai with world-class restaurants all over the world, and that brings us to the offerings which the restaurants are offering right now, and chefs being allowed to push boundaries. I feel since I was here as a kid to now, the food scene has evolved immensely, right from basic street food like shawarmas to elevated fine dining, to a level which is which I think there are some of the world's best restaurants in Dubai, and there are some chefs who are doing really good stuff, from just like cooking only on wood, or putting light on tasting menus where people spend 3.5 hours of their time having a food and wine pairing, or not only a food and wine or a food and cocktail pairing. And these guys have shown light on that. But one more great thing being in the Middle East, and being in an Arab country, is the rise of the non-alcoholic drinks menu and cocktails, which has basically taken all of us by storm. Uh, so we do understand that there's a huge population over here, uh, and restaurants are not only looking to develop their wine menu and get wine from all over the world, or their cocktail menu, but also to have an offering of non-alcoholic beverages, which are at par uh, to their wine offering, which pairs with the food the same way and offers a unique experience to the guest.
100% agree on it. I mean, the non-alcoholic world changed drastically over the last couple of years. And it's more here because obviously there are people that are not drinking alcohol at all. But it's overall globally, because even I believe people are becoming more and more conscious of what they drink, of how much they are drinking, same as they are conscious about what they are eating. And the reality is, at some point, you need to start living a little bit more healthy. You want to still have 1, 2 nice cocktails, but then you don't want to have 10 cocktails throughout the night. And that's when the non-alcoholic market literally boomed, because in the past couple of years, there are so many very good products on the market that are, let's say, replicas of spirits. So it started with the non-alcoholic gin, and it was the big craze because everyone was a bit shocked. So, okay, it's a gin, but it's non-alcoholic. It doesn't make sense. But then it moved from the gin to literally everything. So you get non-alcoholic rums, you get non-alcoholic tequilas, literally everything on the market right now. And there are some products that are actually really good, which in return makes it very, let's say, user friendly for bartenders. If you are a person that is very passionate about drinks, obviously spirits are number one and are the ones that you focus most. So in general, you would not really have a bartender enjoying to make a non-alcoholic drink, because it's less flavors that you can put. It all kind of comes down to, okay, I get the flavors from fruits or from this kind of stuff, but it's less exciting. It's something that no bartender would have enjoyed to make a virgin mojito, regardless how nice you would make it for someone. But now, with the non-alcoholic market booming and with all of these new entries, it's extremely exciting for bartenders to play with as well. So that's when also there is a lot of drive coming from the bars, because you realize that you can do a drink just as complex without alcohol, as same as you would do a drink that has alcohol in it. And then now you are not talking about necessarily mocktails anymore. You are talking about zero ABV cocktails. And it just goes to show that they are being treated in terms of presentation, in terms of methods, in terms of techniques, exactly the same as you would do with a cocktail. So you have very elaborate techniques, even if it's clarification, even if it's fat washing, or even whatever it would be, that you kind of think, okay, maybe I should apply this to a drink that doesn't have alcohol. And maybe I should present it a little bit more elaborate. And you literally are getting those style of drinks that if you see them, if you taste them, you would ask twice if it actually has alcohol in it or not.
So basically, coming back to, non-alcoholic beverages, it comes down to the ingredient. And Dubai being a summer destination, to create these gourmet menus and things, you need good produce. I think Dubai has slowly and steadily developed everything in terms of from vertical farming to be able to get organic and sustainable fish, and local sustain. I mean, there are a lot of gaps in the market which we import our sources from, our ingredients from, but it's also those products which are grown locally and take the spotlight on the menu and gives our diners more knowledge about what we finally put on menus. So coming back to different kinds of unique dining experiences which we have in the market, uh, what do you think is where we are pushing boundaries? Where do you think we are pushing boundaries?
I believe that as you mentioned, the local influence is quite high now. Dubai was a place where everything was flown in. If you needed tomatoes, if you needed cucumbers, they would not have been grown here. And in the past couple of years, there are more and more hydro farms, and as well just regular farms that are coming alive across the city, and that makes it as well very intriguing for us because we get to work with products that are much more tastier. Whichever grows here, it's packed of flavor as opposed to something that was picked unripe, so it survives the whole trip to come to Dubai. And now in it was again gastronomy that obviously was the first to use it, and a lot of the local product was used in the kitchens. Now they are as well in the bar. So in terms of fresh fruits, in terms of vegetables, everything gets sourced as well from here, and we're working with them. And it's just an overall much better product.
Great. Now, coming back to unique experiences, what I would like to say is that over the last couple of years, if you've seen the way restaurants have evolved, it normally used to be a chef who used to be talented and an investor who gets together to come up with a great restaurant or to open up their new restaurant. Over the last couple of years, that has changed a little bit, especially with supper clubs being something which is popping up all over Dubai, and pop-ups as well. I think Al Sarkar Avenue started this with a concept called Ink, where they used to do gastronomic themed dinners for 2 nights based on uh, color or based on a historic painter, and create avant-garde 6 course tasting menus. Uh, a very good success story in Dubai, since both of us are here, is also Kinoya. I think it was by a lady, Neha, who started these supper clubs in her house, and then slowly she opened her own restaurant, and now that's the one to watch uh, in Dubai, which is a story which a mother of two used to make, was passionate about making ramen, and then she started doing supper clubs and inviting people over. And then one such guest said, "Why don't you open a restaurant?" And then she opened a restaurant, and then now she's on the one to watch and on the Bib Gourmand list for this year. So I think those experiential dining experiences are growing slowly and steadily. Another chef I would like to mention is Akmal Anwar, who opened Three Fills, the best restaurant in the Middle East currently. Uh, and now he's moved to Goldfish and a new concept called Woodfire, where everything is cooked basically on logs, on wood. There is no there is gas, but most of the meats, the fish, everything is grilled in old traditional ways. Uh, I think that's how chefs are being more creative by just going out of the box a little bit. It's also challenging norms as to how you can open your restaurant and how you can be out there by just having that passion to cook food and give an offering which is not available in the market currently. Any of
It's
the beverage or food menus you have tried recently which like made you go like, wow, why didn't anybody think of this before?
it's pretty much the same, I believe, what is happening in bars as well. I don't think we've gotten a chance to try the drinks in, for example, Salmon Guru. They are the best. They are from Madrid, and they opened fairly recent to Dubai. Um, and it kind of goes on the same direction where there are venues, there are bars that are operated by bartenders. It's not just an investor that comes in and says, okay, I want to have a nice bar. They're operated by bartenders, so there is a lot of care, a lot of attention in the drinks. There's a lot of techniques that go behind. I mean, I mentioned Salmon Guru because you enter there and they have a rotovap in the middle of the bar, and it's something that not many people would have that piece of equipment or would even know how to operate it. So yeah, I would say they are one of the good examples that are run by bartenders that are very focused on the product. You mentioned Kinoya, and actually their bar program is as well very authentic. It's I believe these types of places are coming a lot from the passion of the individuals. Like if you cook ramen in your home for so many times that you end up perfecting it, and then you want to open a place. Obviously, there's a lot of passion behind it. But then at the same time, I do believe that these kind of places are what basically Dubai needs. It's originality. With so many offerings, with so many venues, it's hard to keep track of which venue opens now because almost every day there's new places popping up. And then the originality of a venue may it be just I'm doing ramen, but I'm doing the most amazing ramen, and that's it. And you being true to yourself and you being true to your concept, I think it's probably what drives these type of places. I mean, what would be for you, let's say, the best reasoning of having a venue? What will be the best drive, and it will make you elevated?
I think to have a venue which is basically people driven and believing in people to get the best out of them is what is driving experiential cuisine in Dubai, especially because at the end of the day, me as a chef, if I'm working X amount of hours to put the best plate forward, I would like to be recognized, and these guides are basically bringing recognition to these individuals who have done so well. Uh, for example, Trescent, which just moved to, which has an outpost in Mumbai as well, has just won one Michelin star, the Trescent Studio in Palm Jumeirah, and they also have a really nice garden. Now, the garden concept basically came to the rest of the world through Europe because the produce over there was so rich and so good that chefs started doing farm to table menus. Now, these farm to table menus are where the chefs grow their own vegetables, and those vegetables are grown organically, and then they pluck it themselves. They treat it in whatever way, and then it finally reaches your plate the same day. one restaurant which I worked in Australia, in Melbourne, called Attica, which at that time was the 21st best restaurant in the world, used to grow their own herbs. And in one dish, we used to have about 18 herbs. But the unique part about that restaurant was that every day morning we used to go and we used to pluck these herbs. The best part about that was that we knew that on the books we had about 66 guests. So we used to pluck 67 leaves, each of those leaves. One was for in case something goes wrong, right? But everything was plucked with just the right quality, the right quantity, so that there is no wastage. And experiential dining doesn't only have to be towards the guest. I think it has to do with giving something back to the community as well, as to how the entire cycle works. Um, Attica was one. I think Lavi in Osnabrück, which shut down recently due to the pandemic, which was 3-star Michelin. They used to do farm to table menus. In Spain, people are always pushing boundaries to change texture. They're pushing the gastronomic norm scientifically. They're coming out with unique dining experiences everywhere. And it's also the produce which comes from there. I mean, it's so wonderful to see how much of detail goes into just growing a vegetable. Uh, and that vegetable reaching your plate in less than 3 hours from when it was plucked, taking care of it, taking care of the ecosystem, is where the world is headed. Because nowadays people are more aware of what they are eating. A lot of people are going more vegetarian and vegan. There is the advent of plant-based meats, which is creating a whole different experience for guests. And if you actually look at it, there are sometimes which when I get confused, which is a plant-based burger and which is a regular hamburger, because the amount of detail and the millions of dollars gone into research of basically getting plant-based produce to look like meat, whether it is, for example, I work in Stars and Bars currently, and on the menu we have a vegan schnitzel and we have plant-based nuggets, which is basically made out of soya and other plant-based protein. Um, you, of course, the taste differs to regular chicken, but you also know you're eating something which is healthy, something which you're most of the vegans currently are vegans by choice. So these kind of menus which are curated, or menu items which are curated to certain uh, people, is where food and beverage is heading.
I have a curiosity because you did mention that there's a lot of people that are becoming vegan, and it's true. And it's even for us at the bar, we're starting to be much more mindful of, okay, if I want to do a whiskey sour, should I use egg white? Because maybe there's people that do not, even the recipe has been with egg white for many, many, many years since it was created. But should I maybe do a version that does not have egg white? Because I want everyone to be able to enjoy that drink, and then it goes with a lot of other products. But for us, still, we have a lot more freedom when it comes to that. Like the dietary restrictions don't really affect us as much as obviously it would affect the chef. But I'm just curious on what would be a chef's vision when it comes to vegan food? Is it something that you would see it as a challenge? Because again, in terms of flavor, it's a bit more difficult to do a dish fully vegan as it would be to just add butter and then you get immense amount of flavor, in the dish. So how you as a chef are seeing vegan food? Is it like bartenders and mocktails? Is it something that you are doing, but I would prefer to throw some butter on it?
I would love to throw lots of butter into everything. I think it just enhances flavor, builds up calories, but makes the food taste really nice. But that's a really good question. So for me, if I have a vegan guest, I take it as a challenge, all right, to create something in a specific time period which tastes delicious and ticks all the boxes and gives the plate of food to the guest on time. So what I would appreciate is normally when people are making reservations to give their dietary requirements so that the kitchen is basically well prepared in advance. Uh, what that does is basically gives us time to order for ingredients or to create something which we could better than when a guest just walks into the restaurant and says, I'm vegan, what do you have for me? So it restricts us as well because we are basically we have to look into the fridge and see what we can make for the guest. It will keep them waiting for another 15 minutes longer than if they make a reservation and they say that, I'm allergic to certain items and I'm vegan. So is there anything you have on your menu, or is there something special the chefs can create? But one thing which I really like about vegan guests is it starts a conversation. All right, because when you need something, you speak to the chef, and then when you go out and you start having a conversation, you basically understand what the guest wants. And to deliver that or take it one step further, it becomes easier for us because most of the time we are on a one-way conversation with our KOT machine. So to have that human touch and to have that human element to touch base to see what exactly the guest needs, whether it's an allergic reaction or whether it's a special dietary requirement. uh, I would basically love to throw butter in everything still, but nowadays with all the different products which are there in the market, they have vegan butter as well.
Yes,
So
it's still an option.
Uh, talking about veganism, I think there are a few products in the market these days which just by the name creates a dining experience for guests. Now we have spoken about going to Michelin star restaurants but even when you go to a casual dining restaurant, for example, at Stars and Bars, there's so much of there's an experience you can get. For example, we have been testing something and we might put it on our menu in the future is a jackfruit pepperoni. So not pepperoni, but a jackfruit pepperoni on a normal pizza. That can be made vegan by putting vegan cheese on it, and then the rest of the bread and vegan cheese, some tomato sauce, and jackfruit pepperoni. It can be as simple as that to create a wow experience for our guests. Uh, it doesn't need to be a 17-course dining sit down menu, but just something simple, executed perfectly, and done consistently is what creates that wow experience, in my opinion.
I would say for bars is maybe a little bit the opposite, because for kitchen now, like on this topic, you're trying to find substitutes to replace the meat, and then like the jackfruit pepperoni, I would be very intrigued to try. For cocktails, I think it's a little bit the opposite, because the innovation comes from bringing ingredients that are generally used only in the kitchen. So you're seeing a lot of like if it's fat washing, for example, and it doesn't have to be like a bacon whiskey, although it's a very nice drink if you would make something with the bacon infused whiskey. But I think it comes from adding elements that normally you would not add. So it's having a cocktail that, okay, does this have blue cheese in it, or like these type of elements that people would never think of seeing them in a liquid form. And that's where for us it's more the innovation. We're trying to, instead of replacing something from what we do, we're trying to add stuff that nobody would ever think that they belong there. And that's where there was a very big craze, and it still continues to be, where a lot of food elements are being brought into cocktails, and it's, I would imagine, the same as a lot of chefs that are starting to work more and more with alcohol, because you would still get quite a lot of flavor. I mean, we're getting a lot of flavor from butter, from meat, from mushrooms, cheese, olives, a lot of things that you would only imagine them in food. And then when it comes to cooking with alcohol, what is your vision on it? I mean, we are a Muslim country, so I imagine it's a little bit more restrictive in that case.
I love the flavor of alcohol in my food. To be really honest, yes, it is restrictive because you cannot use alcohol on deliveries uh, and any takeaway items. So if we have to use alcohol, we normally put an alcohol signage on the menu to inform our guests as to whether it contains alcohol or not. Alternatively, if the dish has has alcohol, we normally also have a non-alcohol version of it. So, for example, we do something in our restaurant called the beer battered fish and chips. We do it with beer basically because we want, of course, when you heat alcohol, the alcohol evaporates and all what stays is flavor, but it also adds a crisp batter or texture to the dish. So if we have somebody who comes in and says, could we have the beer battered fish and chips without the alcohol? The answer is yes, because we know that we do it. And instead of using beer, we use soda. And the same thing is that if anybody wants takeaway, we have an alternative to it. We also have something called the vodka rigatoni, which is made with chunky tomatoes uh, and vodka. If somebody doesn't want it, we just don't put it in our dish while finishing it off. So that's how it is. So the base sauces are made neutral, and the alcohol is added at the last moment just to make sure that we cater to all our patrons. Uh, that being said, you said that a lot of inspiration comes from the kitchen to bars. Do you see the future of experiential dining being chefs taking over bars and shaking up cocktails?
I think it's starting a little bit if I look around globally, because you have more and more chefs that are getting quite involved in the creative process of drinks as well. I mean, if you look at Alinea, for example, and then they're very known for their cocktails as well. Um, there are chefs that are releasing cocktail books.
Yep.
One very good example is Ferran Adria, that is very well known, obviously, in the culinary world, and he is very well known for a lot of the innovation that he did for majority of the techniques that we are using now, actually. And he released a cocktail book as well, quite recent. So I do think that chefs are seeing the potential in that, and it's probably a new exciting world for them, because you get to work with liquid that you don't get to work with as much. But then at the same time, there is a very big surge of bartenders led and created bars. So I don't really, maybe I'm being biased because it's obviously from a bartender's perspective, but I don't really think that chefs would get the chance to take over the bars. And it's just because there's more and more bartenders that are becoming very passionate about opening their own place. If you look at 50 best bars, I would say majority of the 50 best bars globally are opened, operated, and led by bartenders. So it's something that is definitely happening, but it will still be in collaboration with bartenders. I think still we run our industry, and we will for quite some time. But it is true, there is a very big interest from the culinary world into the kitchen. But at the same time, I see more and more bartenders that are showing a very big interest in the culinary world. There's more and more bartenders that have awareness of, and it's not just for the techniques of food in general, because it's all the ingredients, all the flavors you experience through food, and then you can recreate and you can have them inside of a drink. So I do believe that as well there is a wave of bartenders that are very interested in getting more familiar with the culinary world. Is it something that you've experienced? I mean, do you as a chef get approached a lot by I know for a fact that I approach every chef that I know generally, just to ask about, hey, what do you think of this, or what about that, or this flavor? And do you generally get approached by a lot of bartenders looking for basically to elevate the experience of what they do?
Yes, a lot actually, and thank you for mentioning that. It kind of slipped my mind is that not only do they come for to try out different flavors, but they also come to and we put our minds together to understand the taste and texture and what they actually want to get. They want to play with texture a lot and to extract flavor from different ingredients, know about flavor pairings, what would go well with what, and just to taste their cocktails to see what exactly it is and what needs to be added or subtracted or what are our thoughts on it. Uh, so a lot of bartenders do come. They like experiencing ingredients. They like looking at what comes into the kitchen. Basically, when we are receiving, and they'll have a look. They'll look at a new ingredient. They're like, "What is this used for? Why do you use this?" A lot of souring agents is where bartenders are intrigued as well. So from tomatoes to tamarind to different kinds of lime, yuzu, calamansi, uh, is where, to give the tartness to the drink is where bartenders are interested, what they can do with it. Uh, Also, food and beverage pairing is a big part where we when normally we're doing big tasting menus of 7 course and above, we have a conversation with the sommelier as to what needs to be paired with what. There are different wines which come for tasting. Should we do a wine and a cocktail pairing, or should we just do a wine list along with the menu? Nowadays, with the non-alcoholic drinks, even for example, I think with non-alcoholic drinks and beer especially, it gives them a great marketing tool to market during football matches as well. So that there is the Heineken Zero, which is there on Champions League games and things like that to give the entire experience. So yes, a lot of bartenders are very interested with flavors, textures, even processes. How to use the sous vide machine? How could we make a syrup with cherries and sugar in a sous vide machine? Do we need to actually use sugar, or is the natural sweetness of the ingredient enough to balance things out? Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. I look forward to it all the time because there are so many ideas, and you never stop learning, especially in the kitchen or when you're at the bar. I'm slightly jealous though because bartenders have less ingredient issues than the kitchen does. For example, if you ask for a bottle of Jack Daniels, you get a bottle of Jack Daniels from whichever supplier, and that is standardized throughout the world. But if you ask for, say, a block of cheese, then the guy comes to you with a list of 100 different items as to what type of cheddar do you actually want. Do you want mild cheddar? Do you want mature cheddar? Do you want white cheddar? Do you want slices? Do you want cubes? Do you want a whole block? I think that's where I'm a little bit jealous about the bar, because you know that you're going to get your Jack Daniels, which is standardized and has the same flavor profile, so it makes it more interesting to work with. Um, and the other thing which I'm really jealous about is the time you'll take to make your cocktails in the bar compared to the time we take to dish out food in the kitchen. Uh, but I think it's a healthy mix of both the bar and the kitchen, uh, and a seamless experience to the guest is what creates an experience, and that's where the buy and we as a whole are pushing boundaries slowly but steadily.
I do believe that as well. In the bar, it's true, it's less challenging when it comes to getting the ingredients, in the sense that if it's a spirit, you know what you get. But then there are certain spirits, and if we're talking of whiskey, for example, which is one of the whiskey has had its moment, and then it kind of went away a little bit. Vodka was quite big. All the white spirits were quite big. Gin for some time. Whiskey is making a very big comeback since the past couple of years, and that's when it gets tricky, because there are so many different types of whiskeys. If we're talking about single malts, that yes, if I want a Jack Daniels, I get a Jack Daniels. I know what it is. But then if I want to elevate my drink, what other whiskey should I use? And that's when it gets a little bit tricky, because there are some that you kind of get them off from tasting notes when you find out about a new spirit, but it's not as easy. A tasting note of marshmallows does not make your whiskey sweet. It just means that it might have a small hint. So with our challenge, I think it's more on sourcing and trying to find the right ingredient and getting it out there, being able to try. It's same as for a sommelier. For a sommelier to be able to recommend you the best wine, the reality is they need to try a lot of wines on a daily basis. And it's just because you need to understand the product quite well. So it's a bit more of a challenge, let's say, from that side. But I do get your point, because there's so many producers making cheese, for example, that you're gonna get tons of different samples, and okay, but I just wanted like a normal regular cheese, and then you get a table full of different samples and stuff like that. I would say that one of the big advantages that we have in the industry for bar versus kitchen, it's the guest interaction. It's something that we're able to connect with the guests that are coming in, and we're able to understand them, and we're able to, let's say, kind of read them a little bit into what would they normally like. I do imagine that for a chef it's a little bit more difficult, because you tend to speak with the people majority of the time after they order their food. And for us, we were kind of there before, and that's what makes us a little bit, let's say, with a healthy advantage, that we get to create that bond. We get to realize, okay, I have this extremely crazy cocktail that it has, I don't know how many ingredients, and it's very elaborate, and it looks absolutely clear, but it actually tastes like something that is not clear. And this person seems like they might enjoy it, so I'm gonna recommend that. So I think for us it's one of the biggest advantages overall.
Yes, of how having no screen or nothing in front of you between the guests and understanding exactly what they want. I mean, it's been a great chat, Laura, and I think summing it up, cocktails and experiential dining in the world is here to stay. Especially in Dubai, I think it's just going to go from strength to strength. I think there'll be loads of bartenders, loads of chefs who are coming up with more creative menus and offerings for beverages as well. Non-alcoholic beverages is going to play a huge part in the future, especially in the Middle East. That you'll see more ingredients which are imported from outside, which are really unique, which gives that experience to the guest, which can be compared to restaurants and hotels worldwide. How would you like to sum it up?
I would say that as well, when it comes to experiential drinks, when it comes to elaborate foods, we're just gonna go more and more elaborate as we go. It's not gonna get more simple. It's something that we would look more into originality. I believe that the cocktails that would come from, let's say, in the coming years, would be much more linked to the kitchen, would be much more linked to the cuisine. We are looking for originality in the sense of it is a South American place, and as you mentioned, yes, I'm gonna import everything from South America that someone from Dubai does not have a chance to try. Ingredients that they have that maybe you've never heard of, and I'm gonna use them in the drinks. So I do see a very big wave of, let's say, new ingredients, of trying to be very, very real to the concept that you have, trying to be very authentic to what you are doing. It will be much more than just, this is a nice fruity vodka cocktail. it will be a lot of thought process behind that drink. If it is a nice fruity vodka cocktail, but the fruit is something that it would be quite authentic, that you would not necessarily get the chance to try. Originality will play a very big role, and I do see this coming in the next years more and more stronger, in all the bars, I would say.
Exciting. Just to give you a brief insight into what we plan to do with experiences, as I mentioned earlier, also is to have more plant-based items on our menu, especially like a casual jackfruit pepperoni pizza. So anytime you're in La Mer, do drop by to have to try out the jackfruit pepperoni at Stars and Bars. We are also doing a monochromatic dining experience, which we can bring to your doorstep or events whenever you need it. And yeah, I mean, we keep pushing boundaries. We keep creating menus which are out of the box. We customize them to what guest wants. So feel free to reach out anytime you need, any of the members need anything. And I'd just like to say thank you, Laura. It was a pleasure spending so much of time with you. It was a pleasure seeing you, meeting you, e-meeting you, and hearing your insight into the beverage industry. And since we are in the same city, hopefully one day we should catch up. Thank you.
Definitely. It was a pleasure for me as well to you don't get to have these discussions that much with people in the industry. We tend to focus a lot about what we do and maybe not talk that much about it. It's more important the actual product than putting it out there. But then it's good, and it's a breath of fresh air to actually take a step back and discuss a bit about the overall industry and everything else. I would say that for any bartender, for any professional, in my case as well, we do love to share our experiences, our passion, our knowledge. So yeah, I would definitely love to meet you, to catch up, and to discuss furthermore.
Without further ado, I would also like to thank the team at DLC to make this happen. They have put this together, bought us and given us topics and encouraged us to meet, network, step out of our comfort zone, set the platform to have such an open conversation. So thank you, guys. I think it's been a real pleasure to be here, and looking forward to more chats in the future.